to it ever since. Geneva Point Center has been around a very long time, and many of you know it. You may have worked there, you may have had children work there, you may have been to an event there, and it's entirely possible you've never even heard of it. All of those are true, and first of all, I want to do a volume check. I have a pretty big outdoor voice. But I want to make sure that I'm being loud enough. And so if you're having any trouble hearing me, just kind of wave, and I'll know what that means, and I'll talk louder. So having said that, again, thank you for being here and for inviting me and letting me come to visit you. There are pictures going on behind me. I have absolutely no idea what is happening. There are a lot of pictures. Some of them are very old, obviously. Some of them are kind of old, and some of them are really quite recent, as in like a few weeks ago or a few days ago. That's not last week. Although it felt like it the other day. So we've had a wonderful history here in the Moultonborough area, and we used to have a Center Harbor address, so it's hard to know. But how many of you have been there? See, that's great. You know it probably from a time way before my time. I've only been around for about 7 years, and I'm by no means an expert on the history of this area, the Moultonborough Neck, or even of Geneva Point Center, the way perhaps some of you are, because I see in the back one of our local experts on Geneva Point is here. And it was our pleasure to host a big historical event for the town and for the state a few years ago, and I think some of you were there for that as well. And that was a lot of fun. So Geneva Point Center has at least 3 historical buildings that people know of. And there are pictures of those here, but there's probably a lot more history about the place than just those 3 buildings. I think our barn might be one of the oldest buildings on the Neck Road. We're not really sure, but maybe at least 200 years old. It looks really old anyways. So if you're missing the Woodshed restaurant, for instance, you just want to go and have a nostalgic moment, come over and see our barn and look up. It looks a little like the woodshed. In fact, we've often thought that the same people built the 2 buildings because they have the same kind of tool marks and things like that. So a lot of history with the place. But I'll give you my own limited version of the history of Geneva Point Center. It goes way back to a guy who was a very interesting fella named Dr. Greene, and he sold things that people bought to make themselves feel better, which were mostly alcohol. He's the classic American snake oil salesman, and he made a lot of money at it. If he only had infomercials and the internet, imagine what he could have done. But he was able to sell this stuff at I guess, some great volume, enough to leave his sons, the Greene brothers, a fairly large amount of money and nothing but time to spend it. And so they did things with it. And believe me, if those of you who are experts on this and you want to correct me anywhere along the way, feel free. I like my story because it's fun, but it's not always as accurate as some might be. But anyways, the Greene brothers had a great time spending the money. And one of the things they did was start a poultry farm on the Moultonborough Neck. And it was known as the Roxmont Farm. And it was at one time one of the great poultry producing operations in the entire country, maybe the entire world. The next thing that happened is they maybe got bored with that. There was a war and a depression and things like that happened somewhere around the turn of the century. In the late 1800s, they started thinking about other things to do. Now, there are many buildings on the property. There's the ones that may be most well known are the Inn, or the Winnipesaukee Inn, and the chapel, which was built some years later, and the barn, which was, again, the oldest building there. Those are the ones people come to see and take pictures of and things like that. The inn itself was originally, some people say it was a place to keep chickens, but I think it was actually horses, maybe chickens too. But really horses. And if you go in the building and walk around, and I invite you to come out and visit us and see it. You walk in, and if you think horses, you can see it. It's really pretty obvious. You walk into our lobby, which is really our welcome place, and you walk in and you immediately think horses, if you're thinking horses anyways, and you go, okay, horse, 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 Perfect. What a beautiful place to keep your horses. They must really have loved their horses. But only for a while, because they turned the whole thing into the Winnipesaukee Inn, which became one of the first family resorts in the area, way back just before the turn of the century. It is located, as you know, at more or less the end of the Moultonborough neck, and it is also located at the end of something called Dock Road, which is the road that goes from the inn all the way down to the lake, where there was a dock where a boat came up from, I believe, Alton Bay, and steamed its way up the lake and ended up dropping off families and guests to stay at the Winnipesaukee Inn for a getaway. And that's how it was for a while. Some years later, that was no longer the thing to do. It started to fade away, and again, I'm breezing quickly through the history. But the Greene brothers lost interest in time to do that, and they ended up becoming a place at Geneva Point, at the grounds there. The best way I can describe it is it became a place where Sunday school teachers went to become better Sunday school teachers. And there began a history. It has a linked history, actually, with Maribist, on the other side of the lake, Camp Maribist, and the Danforths and some other folks who were involved in the founding of the American Youth Foundation. They were also involved in the founding of the conferences that began to happen at Geneva Point. And then eventually, out of the Sunday school associations that existed at that time, came to be what is still known as the National Council of Churches in Christ, which still exists today. And it was essentially the owner and operator of Geneva Point for most of its history, most of what you and your families in this area might have intersected with in those years. None of you look old enough to have gone to school with the Greene brothers. Or maybe bought some products from them, I don't know. But at any rate, the National Council owned it and operated it as an ecumenical conference center for a great many years, and survived all kinds of things, and thousands and thousands and thousands of people came. Among them, if I'm correct, was J.L. Kraft, and he actually was instrumental in the funding and construction of our chapel, which is one of our three most important buildings, maybe four most important buildings today. And the chapel is absolutely the best place within 100 miles to hear a concert. I will bet you a lot of money that you could not find a better venue for a concert of a chamber orchestra or a great acoustic folk music event. It is really a fine place for a concert, and that has been one of the things that's transitioned our past into what we do now, and I'm sure will be part of our future, is that wonderful space that was envisioned in about 1933 or so, I think. So the chapel is just an incredible part of our story, as is the inn, because they not only built a place that was great for horses, but they made this fabulous porch, which was not for horses. The porch wraps right around the building, the longest side that faces out to the lake and the Ossipee Mountains, which is, again, just got to be the best place to sit and rock on a rocking chair and watch the lake and have a cup of coffee in the morning or a little ice cream in the evening and talk with friends or listen to somebody playing music or just watch the mountains turn colors in the fall. It's really a fabulous place, and of the 2 or 3 places you might think people like to spend their time at Geneva Point, that might be number 1. It's a really tough bet, because really the greatest thing of all of those things I've just said, that all of that history, all the Greene brothers and the churches and the Sunday schools, the very best thing about Geneva Point Center is really just what God put there in the first place. We have almost a mile of Lake Winnipesaukee shoreline. And I don't know where else you can go on the lake and find that much shoreline all in one piece that is not somehow littered with things that we all put there, like houses and cars, and it's got a nice trail that runs up. We have 3 beaches, and our morning beach, for instance, is just about the best place on the lake to watch a sunrise. And in fact, it'd be hard to find a better place anywhere to see the sunrise. It also happens to be a place where a lot of people get engaged, it turns out, which is one of the unique histories of Geneva Point. People tend to go there for something important through their lives. And that's certainly seems to be one of the themes that we have for Geneva Point Center. It's a place where people go for something important in their lives. It might be a very quiet, important thing, like a need for spiritual reflection, or just private time to work on a book or something that's important in their business life, perhaps. But they go there for something that they can't get anywhere else, a place to step back, retreat, and get something that empowers them to get back to whatever it is they do in their life, wherever it is, and make that better in their life and in the lives that they touch around them, which is actually what more or less you'll find on a big rock in front of our meeting house, which is, from this place, go forth and make the world a better place. Again, people come there to do important things, to learn to be a better Sunday school teacher. Some would say that's a very important thing. Other people go there to get married, which seems to be an increasingly popular thing to do. But we love hosting weddings. We don't do it because it's a money-making enterprise. We would probably host 10 times more if we wanted that. But we do it because we believe it's part of our mission to serve communities of faith, communities of service, communities of education, and families, which we think are really important. So we host a lot of family reunions, and we host weddings, which we think is a brand new form of family reunion just starting out in somebody's family. So again, an important event. We host other things that are important to people. Some of you have been out there for the Moultonborough Academy Senior Dinners, which we are very proud and happy to host annually. And that's actually one of the most fun things we do, because we get to see so many people from our town, and we get to see their generations going through that system, and we get to see all of the folks who are caring for their community, from the fire department to the bank to the police department to other local businesses and organizations that want to support young people growing up in this community. So again, important events that people come to Geneva Point for happen and have been going on for a long time. A New Hampshire nonprofit corporation, and we have a board of directors that is populated by people from this community, by people who represent the historic conferences that have been a part of Geneva Point's history, and they are people we have encountered elsewhere especially in New England, that have something that can help us achieve our mission. So what is our mission today after all of that? Our mission is to some degree what it always has been, which is to make the world a better place, although that particular phrasing didn't come into our language for a long time. We, technically speaking, are not only an ecumenical conference center anymore. We are very, very diverse, many, many different kinds of things, and yet we still have those historic conferences. There is a conference that is called the Northern New England School of Religious Education, which we call NESRI for short. In fact, I don't think I've heard anyone from that conference actually speak the entire name out loud since I came here 7 years ago, because even that conference is really not what it used to be. It's become more diverse. It's a huge and glorious family camp full of creative and educational and challenging and interesting and fun activities for entire families to enjoy. And they will celebrate their 100th anniversary in 2016. And they are actually older than we are. We will celebrate our anniversary of 100 years in 2019. So we're almost 100 years old. So our mission today is to regard, reflect, and respect our history and grow from that. That history of being an ecumenical conference center, inherent in that is an understanding of the importance of diversity and the importance of the sameness and finding that about communities and helping to serve and make people go back and do something better. Whether it's a Sunday school teacher or something else church related, and believe me, we still have a lot of church activity going on in our place, but it's branched out to be a lot more than that. Our largest customer, for instance, today, it used to be those conferences that came, the Lutherans and something called Camp Farthest Out, which is a wonderful organization, very old with us, and Nesri. But today our largest customer is actually the University of Massachusetts, Boston. We host the most wonderful adult music camps you will ever even hear of. And they happen twice a summer, the third week of July and the third week of August. And you can actually listen to radio broadcasts from our chapel every morning during those weeks, broadcast live to you and everybody else who cares to listen. And it's really wonderful. But that is actually, I guess, technically our biggest customer now. So it's much more diverse. We host all of those historic conferences. We host something like the Summer Acoustic Music Weeks with the University of Massachusetts. It's actually their radio station, WUMB. And we also host about 7, depending on how you count things, at least 7 solid week-long summer youth camps. So we're still very much a youth camp. And we host 2 girls volleyball camps, 2 youth music camps. We host, how can I explain this? One of our other large customers is a youth camp, but it's also a family camp, and it is the New England Hemophilia Association, which is a camp that families come to because someone in their family, a young person, is a person who is a hemophiliac or suffers from, I shouldn't say suffer, lives with another bleeding or clotting type of disorder. And this is a program they go to learn about how to live, how to stay alive. And in fact, is a place they will come and learn how to self-transfuse and save their own lives. And so it's a tremendously big honor for us to host that program because it's very important and we love that relationship. So NIHA, or as we call it NIHA, is just one of the great things we do. And again, the diversity, but it's very much a youth camp, and we host a couple of different types of church youth camps, and it's still a big thing. We're still a licensed youth camp in the state of New Hampshire. And we believe very strongly in that, to be a place that can be there for different kinds of camps. My own background is in youth camping, really traditional and church-type youth camping, where you kind of go for the whole summer, like some of the famous old camps here that you can spend an enormous amount of money going to. Geneva Point wants to be something else, to provide a place that is accessible and affordable, something really extravagantly wonderful as a natural resource, but at an affordable price point so that we can host these camps for a lot of other people. And so we are very happy to do 7 or 8 weeks of camps where 50 or 60 or 100 people come to these youth camps, and therefore serve quite a few people each year in doing so. Simultaneously, we're doing all these other things. So Geneva Point will serve anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 people a year who will come for a day or an hour or a week or 2 weeks. We have a couple of people who are just really in love with us and will stay for 8 or 9 weeks. Sometimes we're really glad when they go. But we're always glad when they come back again. Another thing that Geneva Point has been for the community around here is an employer. Every time I go out and people figure out who I am and what I do, they said, oh yeah, I used to work there, or I was a lifeguard there, or I was the nurse there. It's really quite impressive how many people have connected with this place. For whatever reason, they stopped wearing their staff shirt. I don't know why, but they have some history with us, and usually can tell me a pretty good story, and I'm always glad to hear them. So, being an employer, I wish the inn was still that color. It's not. It's gray, and that's the chapel. When it was first built, I think, and that's the chapel about 2 years ago. It's an important part of the community. I hope you feel that way, because we do think that being part of the employment community here and the resource for churches and local organizations, and we work with the town, with the rec department and things like that. So that's a part of our mission as well, and it's very consistent. So music is a big thing. I mentioned the theme, and fall is another big theme. We often think of Geneva as a summer place, but it turns out that at least as many people come and visit Geneva Point in the fall, from September 1st, say, through October 31st. Because as you all know, there's nothing more beautiful than this part of New Hampshire in the fall. And we get to sit in that porch and watch, right in that chair, and watch that mountain turn the most amazing colors. So we are huge on photographic tours. Buses come in. We used to host a lot of what used to be called elder hostels, which is a long story. We don't do them anymore. But photography was our number one program there. But still today, professional photographers come to Geneva Point to take pictures, and almost always it's in the fall. We host a lot of weddings in part because of that. And in the fall is the most popular season to get married at Geneva Point, because you can get married in our outdoor chapel, and the setting behind you is actually the lake and the mountains turning color, so it makes for a spectacular background for things. So that's what we do and where we've been. Geneva Point is actually in pretty good shape. We have a strong balance sheet. We try to do things well, to be good neighbors on the Moultonborough net, and to do as much as we can to work with our community and the churches and the educational institutions around us in particular. One of the things that people don't know that live here is that we also are really happy for you just to come out and take a walk and visit us. I'm almost ashamed to admit that we sell between July 1st and August 31st over $20,000 worth of ice cream, because we have the best ice cream shop in the world. And I'd like to invite you to come out and visit us. Typically the ice cream shop is open in the afternoon from about 2 to 4, and most every evening during that time frame from about from 8 to 10 in the evening. And it's like, not only do all of our guests go there in the evening, but all of our neighbors, well, many of them come by, just walk in with their dogs, or they're in down on the neck for some reason. But come on down and have some ice cream with us some night. We would love to have you do that. Please do that. Actually, it's a fun thing to do. And this year we're actually going to be starting in June an experiment, which is to be a place where you can go and sit and have a cup of coffee in the morning too. So something new this year. Well, maybe not donuts, but something also good. We'll probably have muffins and things like that. We're working on different recipes for things that you can enjoy with your coffee. And we've actually gotten into installing. This is terrible. Most of it, I don't know how you are in life, but I'm resigned to it. But we're installing a really great Wi-Fi system, so you can sit there with your iPhone or your tablet and your cup of coffee and your muffin or your newspaper, and sit there and enjoy the early hours of the day. So something new that we're doing this year, and that's where it will be, right there at our Geneva Point store. So other things that we see going on in the future. One of the other things that, again, you live in this area, we like to help you when you need help. One of the things we've done for a lot of the families that live in the area is when you've had a big family event going on, whether it's a reunion or an anniversary or some kind, or you've got an out-of-town guest that you really don't actually want in your house. Sometimes we're a good place for you to go. So we invite you to call us and say, I've got an out-of-town guest coming, or I want to have some fun with my grandchildren. Can I book a room, come out, stay overnight and walk the trails and enjoy the beach? you can do that. Just give us a call. If we can, and we often can, we love to do that. And we do quite a bit of it. We have families that have been coming and doing that for, believe it or not, 70 years in some cases. And it's just exactly that kind of thing. They might have been in this area, or in the Concord area, or elsewhere within kind of striking distance of this place, and they'll come and spend a week. And in most cases, they eat all their meals in our dining rooms and really enjoy a nice, quiet week. And we have enough capacity that we can do the youth camps and a conference and still host a few families at the same time. So it's actually quite a dynamic place. I mentioned the SAMW program, the UMass Boston thing. One of the unique things we've learned from them is how unique we are and what it is about Geneva Point that brings them back and makes us kind of really their place to go. And it's been almost 20 years, actually 25 years this year they're celebrating. And almost all of that has been at Geneva Point. But the things that they really mark as true about us is a place you can go where it feels safe. And you can put down your guitar that you love so much and know it's going to be there when you walk back. And you also know that it's a place where you go and people will say, that's wonderful, you're doing something really special, and you'll get support for it. And they say that sort of thing. But the other thing they say is, just physically and the kinds of things that we have, the natural assets and the variety and scope of accommodations and meeting spaces and venues that we can provide, they just can't find any place else like that anywhere. And they've been looking because they have to. They're required by the university to go out and competitively bid this contract every 5 years, and they go through it. And they look in Maine, and Vermont, and Massachusetts, and Connecticut, and they keep coming back and saying, there's really no place like that. There's no place you can go that has something that's as affordable as this, to have like a place you can pitch a tent, which is very inexpensive, up to a room in our Lakeview Lodge, which is actually, for us, expensive. It's not like Mill Falls expensive, but for us, we think it is. Different scale, I guess, but we have a better view, and you won't find any place better to look at the mountains than Lakeview Lodge. So we've got this unique collection of assets that have been built there over history, and we're there to start with because that's where God put them. And it doesn't seem to be easy to find anything that is like that. So SAMW is celebrating 25 years by negotiating with us at Geneva Point an exclusive, no bid, we can't do anything but this place kind of contract, which I guess is very rare, and we feel quite honored by that. It was a way of them saying to us how unique Geneva Point Center is, and therefore telling us how valuable it is and how important it is for us to do a good job and keep it going. So we see lots more music in the future and creative events with other arts organizations, whether they're youth camps or the expansion of the youth music camps. SAMW itself is actually expanding to a third event in November, which we're excited about. And we look forward to the expansion of programs that we currently serve and to meeting new organizations. One of our favorite things to do is to be in partnership with other organizations like NEHA or the University of Massachusetts or someplace else that's doing something and can't figure out how to get it done. We become their partners. We help them do it. And that's our distinctive role in caring for this property and being that partner for other organizations. So we really do not provide programs very often ourselves. Occasionally we'll present a program all of our own, but really we're looking for great partners who can do something we can't, but we can provide something they need to do what they can do in the best way. And that's really our mission, and we hope that we can be here for another 100 years to do that, and we hope you'll come and bring your family for ice cream, or let us be your extra guest room sometime, or come out for a fall walk and take some pictures. If you want to just come and walk your dog in the fall, not so much June or July or August, please. But in the fall, stop at our office. I'd like to go out and have a walk around. Please do. We'd love that. And, so that's my brief history and what we're doing now and what we're doing in the future. I guess one last thing I'd say, one of the fun things that we do, but all the camps do this around here, we have all these international staff that come from all over the world, and they end up being kind of infectiously enjoyable. And so that's another great feature you get. So you'll hear accents, and they'll end up in the shops, and they often end up at the Moultonborough country store because we tell them to go there. And so you'll meet them as well. So that's my story, and I would love to answer any questions I can. And again, say thank you for letting me come out and share pictures and a story. And if I'm not historically 100% accurate, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty close. And it's great to be part of this community.
Just a question.
When
they have the music camps and that sort of thing, do they open it to the public for concerts or anything like that? Like at the end of their camps, do they do a performance or anything?
It depends a little bit on the event. If you happen to come out for ice cream on a night when the CMW programs are going on, there's often, well, usually there's a few seats you could find up in the balcony of the chapel and come and hear the concerts. But if you come and have ice cream and you can find a seat back there, you'd be welcome to do that. Otherwise, if you want to go farther into the campus during the summertime, you do have to check in the office. But oftentimes, what's happening in the chapel at a time like that, they don't mind. Well, let's face it, folk musicians love an audience. You know, they get a good one there, and we invite you to come and do that. The youth music camps are run by the New Hampshire Independent School of Music. They have a Friday night concert with that. You can look that up on the internet. But their Friday night and Saturday concerts, I believe, are very open to folks who want to come and hear the concert. Obviously, it's mostly for the parents and family of the kids who are at the camp. But again, musicians love an audience, and you're welcome to come by and see those things. And they're really stunning. I mean, these kids are so good. They come from, gosh, way up and down the eastern seaboard, and even from west coast locations as well. So that camp is drawing a lot of people to this area. So. But yeah, come and hear a concert. Yes, sir.
How many acres does it cover?
Currently 86, 87, right in that range. Used to be a little bit bigger in recent years. They sold off a piece of property before I got there, which would have given us the sunset view. I'm very sad about that. I didn't get to see that. But it was an important thing to do to keep the place going on into the future. Oddly enough, Geneva Point Center does not actually own Geneva Point. Strange quirk, but if I'm correct, someplace in the neighborhood of the Great Depression, things weren't going well. And I believe they sold it at that time. So the actual Geneva Point is a little bit farther beyond our third beach. But as far as anybody currently today knows, that big rocky outcropping you see in pictures and makes up our logo, most people think that's Geneva Point. But that's commonly known as Lone Pine Point, actually, to those who have been around Geneva Point for a long time. Yes, sir?
Do you have a full-time staff then?
We do. We have a year-round staff, including myself, a bookkeeper, and essentially a reservationist, and about 6 of us that do various things. And there are other staff that are kind of what you might think of as 3/4 of the year, which means they love to work when the weather's kind of okay, and they like to go away for Christmas and January and do something else and come back. And then by the time we get to the end of June, we are at full staff with about 50 to 60 staff that are seasonal and year-round combined. Yes?
So how many people can you accommodate?
At a peak, about 400. And we do that maybe 2 or 3 weeks of the summer at most these days, but historically that would have been kind of for 7 or 8 weeks. That might have been a little bit more common in the heyday. It's been a long time since church conferencing was as popular as it was 30 and 40 and 50, 60 years ago. We still are really dedicated to as I say, the planets that revolve around Geneva Point. And these are the historic conferences, the Northern New England School of Religious Education, something called Lutheran Winging Me, CFO, which stands for Camp Farthest Out, which is an international prayer and meditation and church conference, and a few others. But these things have been around for anywhere up to 100 years, and we just think those things we want to help them continue. But it's hard to keep those things going, so they're actually kind of shrinking. So while they're shrinking, we're adding in other things that offset that, but it is, instead of one conference each week that had 300 people, we might do 3 things each week. That adds up to anywhere from 150 to 400 people. And that's what we do. And most of whatever we can make in terms of operational income happens in about 12 weeks. So it's really, just like the rest of this part of New Hampshire, an intensely seasonal economy. We do still have a pretty good fall, though, and it's nice. We do enjoy that. So. Yes, ma'am?
Some of the clubs I go on to in this area, they don't have their own facilities, so each month they meet someplace for a dinner meeting. Can you host something like that?
Yes, we do. About 15 years ago, I want to say, Geneva Point built the meeting house. And it is a fabulous place for community events, and that's where we host the Moultonborough Academy Senior Dinner and senior proms and other programs for schools and churches around here. Some of you have been out there for, somebody said they had an Eagle Scout. Was that you?
Yeah.
We did one of those recently. In fact, we just hosted a family reunion in that building recently. But local clubs often meet in that building, and if you are one of the local organizations, we usually throw out our rate sheet and do something we really shouldn't and make it really inexpensive, because we really think that's important to us. I think we just booked an event in September with the Laconia Congregational Church, and we've hosted things for the New Hampshire Historical Society, and
It's wonderful.
quite a few
The lighting
things.
in there. you can
It's a
adjust
nice
it.
building.
It's wonderful.
But it's not the only venue. We can use that building year-round, but we also have other buildings in the summertime and in the fall that can make for a good location. The chapel, for instance, we often host things in there for folks around here as well. So yes, we love to do that. Enjoy it. We can usually do the food service for you, depending on the time of year. We have one building called Gibbs House, which is actually a year-round sort of self-sufficient lodging and meeting space, and we run that most weekends through the winter months, and it's a classic church retreat building. Also is great for a day meeting, and you can call us up and try to book that. Believe it or not, one of the most popular things Geneva Point is used for is quilting groups, and we have an abundance of quilters who come to Geneva Point. And Gibbs House is the primary lodging location. Depending on the group and the size and their particular requirements, they'll do all of that in Gibbs House. But one of them stays in Gibbs House and then actually goes into the meeting house in what we call the big room, which is a huge room where the receptions happen. And that place becomes the grandest quilting factory you've ever seen. And it's really quite beautiful. Yes, sir?
Do you initiate events of your own, or are you always responding to the activities of other organizations?
Mostly the latter of what you said. We, again, believe in partnerships. We actually want to be partners with something we think shares our mission. So we look for organizations that are doing something, try to attract organizations that are doing something that is distinctively wonderful for the world. So NEHA is a great example, and so is SAMW. We work with Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center on camps that are specifically tailored to families that are coping with one or another type of health issue in their lives, whether it's cancer or something like that. Geneva Point was actually one of the original partners with the Hole in the Wall camps, which were founded by Paul Newman. And so Geneva Point was one of the first Hole in the Wall camps before they had their own camps. So that tradition of partnerships still exists, and some of those partnerships have been in place for a long time. We have from time to time offered our own programs, and we probably will, but we always think of ourselves as a partnering, hosting type of facility first, and really think of ourselves as some kind of wonderful collection of campiness and innkeeping. So we're really not totally a youth camp, but we're not totally an either, but we can do both at the same time. So we're looking at hosting some programs in the future that might be really distinctive kind of family camps, because there's a couple weeks in the summer where we're thinking, maybe that's an opportunity for us to do something. So we may try things, but we're never going to get away from looking for partnerships with great service organizations. Yes, sir.
The ice cream is terrific. I can attest to it.
Yes, I just had a long meeting with our new ice cream shop manager, so laying the groundwork for our first order of ice cream. It should unofficially, I think we're going to open at least for our staff on like the 24th of June or something like that. And sometime shortly after that, probably the following weekend, we'll be open with normal summer hours.
And the picture of my head in that, one of the photos came out good.
Really? I saw your head there.
A couple of weeks ago I was there.
Oh,
The scholarship, the Moultonborough Academy scholarship.
Good. Yeah. It's really fun to be around the place, and then you go out and you run into somebody who recognizes me, even when I don't have short pants on, which really makes me feel happy. This actually, the pictures here was one of the funnest, the most enjoyable
My
things we
head
did.
is coming up right here.
Well, it might be in that picture. That's from the Moultonborough Senior Dinner. That's true. Some of the other pictures were from a retirement celebration for Greg Whitman, who retired recently from our staff. But we had a lot of fun with him. So, if there are other questions, I'm really happy to have spent this time with you. And,
Thank you.